Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for that. My name is Dr. Judy Tang, and I am also based in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, or NAM, as they say. And I'm very excited to be here today. A bit about me. So my parents were refugees from the Vietnam War. They're Vietnamese-Chinese. And so when they came over, that's when they had my sister and I. So we were both born in Australia. We're Australian Chinese. My story growing up, it was a very different landscape. I think multiculturalism in Victoria was just coming in at that time. So, going to primary school, I was the only Chinese person. Other than my siblings when they joined and my cousins when they joined. We were the only Chinese people for a while. And fortunately, one of my favorite experiences is that I went to a primary school where it was quite ethnically diverse. So I went to primary school with fellow Italian, Lebanese, and Greek students as well. So we got to really enjoy each other's cultures and get to know each other much better that way. Then I went to high school, and one of the key events in my life was when a certain politician by the name of Pauline Hanson came into the limelight. And honestly, that was the first time that I noticed my Asianness, my ethnicity really it really hit me that I was different in that sense. So that was actually quite a bit of a moment in time for me. But either way, I kept on going with life, and then I became a neuropsychologist because I was interested in all things brains and mental health. And before I knew it, I also realized when I entered university. I came out, realized my sexuality, so I'm one of the gay, and led me really down a path of advocacy through that, where it's either through mental health, LGBTI, and my ethnicity and culture, which leads me to where I am today. So now I'm a neuropsychologist, one of the commissioners at the Victorian Multicultural Commission, and I'm one of the board directors at the Victorian Pride Centre.
Wow, what a cocktail of nations you are. You are Vietnamese, Australian. You intersect with quite a few things that are related to diversity. Now, how has that helped you, especially working with the Multicultural Commission, navigate understanding the needs of diverse people, do you think?
I think it's in some ways a gift and a curse, as they say. with my own experiences of not really feeling like I belong in sort of different communities,
Yeah.
it's given me more of an understanding of how to help others feel heard and belong and advocate from that. So um, my experiences have led me to, I hope, become more of an understanding person and a more emphatic person. Yeah.
So, how do you think your expertise in clinical neuropsychology intersects with and informs your work in promoting diversity and multiculturalism?
Well, mental health impacts everyone, right? We all have a brain. We all have a level of mental health and well-being. So at no point does it not touch anyone at all. So and certainly during COVID, that was one of the priorities that came up for multicultural communities. So for the
Yes.
longest time, perhaps, there really wasn't that much discussion or quite a bit of stigma around mental health. But with COVID, it's actually brought that up to the forefront so that people were talking about it and they were asking for mental health supports. So, with my skills as a neuropsychologist, as a clinician, someone who advocates within mental health spaces itself, it sort of really gave me a platform to push through that support and advocacy.
That's fantastic.
Mm.
So, in your experience, how does cultural background influence the approach to neuropsychological assessments and mental health care?
So, one of the things that I'm pushing for now is more a cultural understanding when it comes to mental health. Um, a lot of what we understand about mental health is based on a Western lens and a Western perspective. If we think about all the theorists, all the psychological theories that have come out recently or in the past, we all think of older white men who've come up with all these theories, sitting on a couch, coming up with all these things. So, and that's not how the world works. The global majority, where um, just within Asia itself, we make up 60% of the world population.
Yes.
So when it comes to understanding mental health, it would not be a surprise to anyone that it might not necessarily fit the rest of the world if you're
Yeah.
not from a Western background. So that's how important it is for culture to be considered and understood, and that it's a particular lens of how we approach mental health.
Hmm. So, what are some of the unique challenges that you faced when providing neuropsychological services in a cultural context?
For example, some of the tests I do, we test memory or we test IQ. The notion of intelligence. One of the courses that I gave was just something as simple of our idea of what intelligence is differs between cultures. Um, in Historically, within more Western-based cultures, how fast you can process information, how fast and how speedy you can do things, is an
Yes.
indicator of intelligence. Whereas in a lot of Eastern and Asian cultures, it's how deeply you can process information is a sign of intelligence. So if you
Yeah.
work too fast, is also some notion that you haven't thought things through properly, so you're not as intelligent. If it has, I actually know in I think in Zimbabwe and some other African cultures how socially connected and how socially well adjusted you are is a notion of intelligence, which makes perfect sense, right? How well
Mhm.
you connect with family, with your other people, it shows
Right.
how intelligent you are and be able to read the room and so forth. So
Yes.
even just our understanding of IQ and what makes a smart person varies between cultures.
Okay, I love that. So, as an advocate in mental
Mm.
health and community care, how do you address the specific needs of marginalized communities?
When it comes to mental health or in general.
Yes, mental health and community care.
Um, There are several prongs to it. One is visibility, right? So, for the longest time, for example, someone who's both multicultural and LGBTI, there hasn't been much visibility for those people. So,
Yes.
ensuring visibility in the first instance that we do exist, and we have just as much a right and to thrive as much as anyone else is already an important thing. The next part is actually, I've got a bit of a sting in my eye, so I do apologize. The next part is then also leadership, right? Once
Right.
there's visibility, leadership roles, when it comes to those that decide how mental health policy should look like, and so forth, there should be representation within leadership roles
Right.
that we have. And then thirdly, it's education. So, ensuring that we encourage those that are diverse to enter into mental health education, become psychologists, become those mental health leaders themselves is the best way to go about it.
Fantastic. Now, can you discuss the importance of considering intersectionality in mental health practice and research?
We just talked about IQ and culture, right? And now, as society is becoming more intelligent in some ways, and our understanding about sexuality and gender, historically, a lot of research has been divided into male and female, and how the male brain works and how the female brain
Yes.
works. So, intersectionality means um, understanding that these particular lens might work for some cohorts, it might not work for everyone.
Everyone,
And having an intersectional approach means that you're actually seeing a person for who they are and not these categories that we try to fit everyone into.
yes.
And that's where it becomes super important, because when you talk about someone's mental health, this is someone's life. This is
Yeah.
someone's heart and brain and emotions. And
Mm,
who I am is not the same as another Chinese person. Who I am is not the same as another LGBTI person. I am all these different things that make me as a whole, just like you are a multitude of things that make you the wonderful person that you are. So how do
right.
we make sure we take an intersectional approach and address all these parts of you,
Yes,
and the wholeness of you, which is why it's really important.
that's fantastic. How do you approach educating and raising awareness amongst your professional peers and the wider community about the importance of diversity in mental health?
Um, Showing up, really.
Mhm.
Showing up to conferences, leading those discussions, putting your foot
Yes,
out there, and actually encouraging the younger generation to put their best foot forward as
yes,
well. So I think really encouraging the younger generation to enter leadership roles is a really important thing to do. And
right.
then supporting them that way is the best way to make change.
Fantastic. Now, as a commissioner at the Victoria Multicultural Commission,
Mm.
what initiatives have you been involved in to promote
Of course,
inclusivity
myself.
and diversity?
So, several years ago, just before COVID, I actually had a particular priority coming in as a multicultural commissioner, and that was to bring a lot more of an intersectional approach, specifically increasing social cohesion and understanding around LGBTI issues and so forth within multicultural communities. That was going all fine until COVID happened. And then that shifted everything. The priorities just changed.
Right.
And again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of multicultural communities are coming to us say, hey, with all these lockdowns, with everything that's happening, mental health is a big issue.
Mm,
So in terms of that kind of shifted into more of an approach around how can we provide mental health support. Now, that's still definitely a priority, and a few things have come up from that. I sort of founded a institute called the Australian Institute for Diversity in Mental Health, and that brings together a lot of multicultural mental health professionals together to advocate and improve mental health for multicultural communities.
mhm.
But also, I'm now able to expand more back into diversity itself, having a bit of a focus around disability, around older adults, around regional rural areas,
Yeah.
and also around LGBTI within the multicultural context.
Okay. So, in your research on healthy aging,
Mm.
how do you integrate considerations with cultural diversity and mental health?
So many ways. Older adults, as we get older, there's actually not as many mental health supports
Okay.
these days. In fact, it was only just several years ago that there's really not much people within residential care settings. There is no dedicated psychologist or particular mental health understanding, and that comes with a bit of ageism as well.
Okay.
Perhaps people think that they're old, who cares about their mental health kind of
Yeah.
thing. They expect them to be depressed, for example, because they're old and so forth. But a lot of research has shown that's definitely not the case. In fact, as many people get older, they get happier.
Yeah.
It's a bit more understanding around mental health. So,
Right.
really having a good sense around mental health as we age is important.
Yes.
Um, and no matter what culture and what ethnicity you have, we all will get old at this point in time.
Yes.
And so then it's also the understanding the structural requirements. So as we get older, if I need to enter aged care or residential care, will
Mhm.
that provide me with the care that I need that respects my culture and
Right.
respects my values? So that's that intersectional, multi-level approach to care and caring.
Okay. So, as a mental health first aid instructor, how do you tailor your training to accommodate diverse groups?
Good question. It's allowing time and space for discussion.
Right.
Um, Statistics and information, that's not going to change.
Yes.
But really tailoring the context so that someone says, actually, I know someone who's a cousin or my uncle or my aunt. How would that work? Uh, Usually people from different cultures where they have family as an important thing, that opens up that discussion and connection, and
Yeah.
then it normalizes mental health difficulties within particular cultures and cohorts. Mm.
Right. That's very interesting. Now, talking about the future, what future developments do you see or do you hope to see in the field of neuropsychology regarding the integration and consideration of diversity and multiculturalism?
I, you know what, within the psychology and mental health sector itself,
Hmm.
culture is still just a little bit, just a small bit of the greater thing, which I think is a huge shame.
Yeah.
We all have a culture. A lot of us in Australia have some kind of ethnicity. In fact, in Victoria, we're officially the majority multicultural people who have a multicultural background. We're the majority of people in Victoria. So in the future, I would love to see a prioritization of culture and its considerations within mental health.
Right.
I would love to see a lot more leadership, and visibility, representation,
Yes.
ethnic leaders within mental health sector,
Yes.
driving that change. And um, over time, it will be wonderful to see the rest of the world um,
Catch up.
make that change in terms of understanding mental health, so that research and theories and treatment is not Western led, but
Yes.
it's a global thing. It's globally led. You've got Eastern influence, you've got African influence, you've got all these kind of other cultures coming in with that lens to say this is how mental health could be for.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Now, within the Asian community, especially the Vietnamese community, how was your coming out accepted by family, by friends? Did you get a lot of support within the community, or was that a struggle?
Well, I'm actually Chinese, so I'm not as connected with the Vietnamese community.
Okay.
Um, Although I can speak from the Chinese community. I mean, we don't,
Yeah.
it's more within the family context, right? I was very lucky.
Okay.
My family have been quite open and accepting of me,
Oh, you
of who
yeah.
I am. they're not exactly, crowing from the rooftops and being out and proud, but this is also quite a multicultural experience. A lot of people who the notion of being out and proud is actually a bit more of a Western approach to
Concept.
sexuality. It's concept, right? We're like, well, it's my private life. We don't really need to tell the world about this. Why do I need to march or things like that? So um, that's yeah, and that is something that a lot of multicultural communities or multicultural LGBTI have advocated for more understanding around what it means to be proud, out and proud, without
Yeah,
having to wave every flag out there.
it's interesting. Yeah,
Mm,
people, different cultures deal with things differently.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very, very true. And the concept that you were talking about, the measure of intelligence in Southern Africa, I can so relate to it. I'm from Zimbabwe, so when you said that, it really landed for me. We are all about how you connect with each other, with the
yeah,
community, with the greater whole, as really being a symbol of how emotionally intelligent you are and how tuned in you are to other
yeah,
people's needs.
yeah.
So things like empathy, compassion, collaboration, connection play a very, very big role in that.
Yeah, and it takes skill, doesn't it? So it does take a high level of intelligence to do it well. So,
Yeah.
again, we need people like you. We need different cultures coming in to really uh, expand on our understanding about our brains and ourselves and mental health and intelligence. It's really important.
So where
Absolutely.
do you see the future going with regards to the work that you're doing in research? One, the work that you're doing with the Multicultural Commission, and your personal life. Where would you see yourself 100 years from now? What kind of a world would you like to see?
Um, I am a terrible person at relaxing, so I've got a few projects on happening at the same time. One of them is actually a startup of sorts. So I'm
Okay.
hoping to bring neuropsychology and mental health to Asia so that, how I was talking about, just uh, encouraging less of a Western perspective and lens around mental health. Um,
Yes.
I'm trying to make a few steps so that to encourage Asia to elevate Asia to become also a global leader when it comes to mental health training and research and so forth. Just to
Okay.
start that international perspective and all that. So
Yes.
that's one of the things
That
within
is
the
fantastic.
Australian. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Within the Australian context itself, I mentioned the Australian Institute for Diversity and Mental Health, and
Yes.
I have a lot of passion to push for um, leadership, representation, and understanding within Australia around multicultural mental health. And so I really hope to work in that space within Australia to
Yes.
build up our future leaders and our future generations around how to incorporate and use culture as a strength when it comes to mental
Yes.
health supports and advocacy. So that's probably two of my biggest projects that I'm going through at this stage. For myself, stay busy, stay active, keep my brain occupied. Because I think if I have nothing to do, that's when people should start being worried. I'll find trouble elsewhere.
I love it. I absolutely
Mm,
love it. No, thank you so much for coming online today and gracing
thank
us with your
you.
story, with your presence, your
And my
knowledge.
hay fever, I do apologize. But
This makes
again,
the
it's
podcast more
Melbourne.
real. We are interviewing real people with real issues.
Absolutely.
Positive.
Yes. Thank you for understanding, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank
Mm,
you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is bringing you voices from people from all over the world, different perspectives, different stories, different experiences. It's really a celebration of how rich we are as a race, So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. And in the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thanks again, Judy. That's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely